There has been a ton of talk recently surrounding momentum and the place it has on the spec tree. Momentum as a talent is super divisive in the community. Many hate it, many love it. Today we're going to do a deep dive on momentum, the issues it has being in where it is in the spec tree, as well as why it is so divisive. Before we talk about momentum, I just want to jump in quick and say that a lot of my viewers aren't subscribed. So if you're viewing my content, if you keep seeing my content pop up, or if you're enjoying this, please, subscribe, hit the bell, leave a like and a comment as well. I'm a small channel. We're pushing towards 600 and eventually 1,000 subs. It means a lot to me for all the support I've already gotten, and I want to see where the channel can go. I have some great plans for the future, so if you like the content or you want to see where this is going, hit subscribe, leave a like, drop a comment down below. It really helps me out. Now, enjoy the video. Alright, so momentum. Now, momentum has been a talent for a long time. It was come out in Legion with the release of Havoc Demon Hunter. It's been around for a long time. Very rarely has it been the meta pick. For a while in BFA and Shadowlands at least, it was against Demonic, and Demonic has just historically been very good. It's been the play for a few times. It was the play in 9.1, and I believe it was the play for a bit for a tier in Legion. I could be wrong about that, though. I wasn't playing back then. And even when it's not been the pick, it's one of the fan favorites kind of ways to play the game, right? Because it's just so different from anything else you're going to get. It's a very flowy style where you're kind of just zipping around the battlefield, doing a bunch of different things, and you're just kind of flying around everywhere. And a lot of people really enjoy that, So that's one of the things with momentum. The reason why it wasn't historically picked, in a lot of scenarios, it just hasn't been better than Demonic, or if it was just so marginally better that Demonic actually turned out to be better, because momentum, of course, is a very complex playstyle and requires much higher capability to play and a much larger room for error, that if you factor those in, Demonic oftentimes would work out better, of course, unless you're like the best player in the world, then momentum might be for you. Now, for a long time, momentum was kind of cock-blocked, so to speak, by Demonic, by the existence of Demonic, by tuning. And the issue that a lot of people didn't like it kind of didn't really come up. A lot of people don't like it. It's really complex and hard to play. Demon Hunter historically is a very brain-off spec. Some people do really like the playstyle, some people don't. It also uses up your movement abilities for damage. You're using a lot of non-damaging globals just to get this buff. And also, in a lot of fights, it just ends up getting you killed. Let's take Painsmith, for example. So, in 9.1 in Sanctum Domination Prague, momentum was the play. Momentum is what you should be playing if you cared about your performance, because it was just a higher damage threshold than a lot of other things at the time. However, momentum on Painsmith, very easy way to get yourself killed. Balls would kill you, spikes would kill you, rushing into a trap could get you killed, rushing into the people with chains could get you killed. There's just a lot of times where you couldn't fell rush, so it kind of forced momentum, even though it had higher damage potential, to not be good. So those are kind of the things why people don't like it. Now, obviously, I've touched on why people love it. It's very complex, it's very fun, it kind of tickles that little scratch in your brain. Setting up the damage windows are really enjoyable. But for a long time, this hasn't really been an issue. It's a choice. They've either been relatively similarly tuned, or Demonic has just been better, and momentum has just kind of been a playstyle that you could play if you wanted to. However, now we have talent trees. Now, momentum used to be down here where Essence Break was. And back then, yeah, it was a capstone, which is a little more restrictive. It was pretty strong. It was basically, they're turning into kind of a flow state gameplay, where you're just trying to keep up this mob, not this thing. You're trying to keep up this buff as much as you possibly can, which is different from where it was before, where you kind of line up these damage windows. However, now, because of changes to how you trigger it, as well as changes to a few other talents, which I'll touch on in a moment, you can have much higher uptime to it. But the real issue comes from when they moved it from a capstone to not a capstone, to where it is now. So they moved it from here, and they moved it up here, and they also moved down Know Your Enemy from this point here. So in doing that, what they did is they removed the glide trigger, which used to be on it. Bless, by the way. Glide doing this sucked. You'd have to glide like every other GCD, and it was very disruptive. So they moved it up here. They've changed it. They've nerfed it a little bit in the buff it gives from 15% to 12%, and they've added Fell Rush. They've added the Hunt and Vengeful Retreat to trigger it as well. Now, all in all, this isn't that bad, right? It's off to the side, which isn't too big of a deal. If you don't want to go through it, you don't have to go through it. If it's turned to be the best in the game, then you can pick it if you want to. If you don't, you don't have to, right? However, the issue comes in during Isolated Prey. So Isolated Prey is a PvP talent. It makes it so that whenever you use Chaos Nova, I-Beam, or Fell Rush, they get an extra ability if they're only hitting one target. So this is literally only useful in pure single target, which is probably the least common damage type in the game. Very rarely are there ever just pure single target bosses. Skull X was one, Sludge Fist was one. There's normally one per raid tier, maybe. Sometimes they don't even have the one per raid tier where it's just purely single target. Now, sometimes there's phases where a boss is just a single target, but there's like ads that come out, or there's cleaves or whatever. In those scenarios, Isolated Prey doesn't do anything for you because those cleave ads do show up, especially because I-beam's damage increase. They put this here and blocked it from Know Your Enemy. Know Your Enemy is probably one of our strongest talents. It's going to give us the ability to kind of hyperscale later in the expansion, giving us a bunch of damage from crit strike. This isn't even working currently, by the way. Both talent points do the same thing. But it's basically going to be our way of getting a ton of stat scaling from critical strike. And they also moved Essence Break down here. I did a video on Essence Break. Card is going to be above right here. Bing! So check that out. Really cool talent. Really happy this is here. Very strong. You're going to want to get this. So you're going to want to get this in every scenario. Sorry. So this in every scenario means that Isolated Prey cannot let you take it. Like, you can't get Isolated Prey in M+, or in Cleave, or in AoE, or in any scenario outside of pure single target, and still get down to Essence Break. Now, this still has issues with blocking Rage Fire, but I've touched that already. So this being here kind of forces you to go down here. The other thing with this pathing is that these talents are just incredibly strong. So Initiative is really, really powerful. It gives you 15% crit rate every 5 seconds. That refreshes when you Vengeful Retreat. This lines up with stuff like Essence Break, stuff like Rage Fire, a bunch of other talents on this side, as well as Know Your Enemy. So you get that Giga crit scaling. You have UBC, very powerful, 500%. Fel Rush damage on your Immo Aura, perfect. You have Tactical Retreat, which gives you Fury whenever you push it, which is fine. It's decent enough. However, it all leads into Momentum, and Momentum is the only really viable way to get down to Know Your Enemy, which is probably one of its biggest issues. Realistically, if they moved Isolated Prey, I don't think this would be as bad as it is currently, but because you basically have to go down Momentum to reach 2 of your strongest talents, it is basically there gatekeeping this playstyle to everybody who doesn't like it, right? Now, if you care about playing optimally and you don't like Momentum, then you do have to go down here. Obviously, if you care about playing optimally, you probably don't really care about Momentum that much. You might hate it, you might like it, you're probably going to pick it anyways. But if you really hate Momentum, you're going to be forced to go down through Isolated Prey, which is very feels bad, especially if you're picking it in scenarios where it doesn't work, right? You're just spending a talent point to avoid something. The issue with Momentum is further compounded by the ability Erratic Fellheart that was added into the class tree. So the cooldown of Fel Rush is reduced by 30%. Let's look at Fel Rush. So Fel Rush baseline, 10 seconds. Now, Erratic Felcore isn't working currently, but 30% of 10 seconds is 3 seconds, right? It brings it down to around 7 seconds with Erratic Felcore. Now, 7 seconds isn't too bad. You see Momentum lasts for 6 seconds. However, there is one other ability that was added this expansion, which is the Bronze Dragonflight buff that Dracthares bring, reducing your movement speed cooldown by 10 extra %. Now, our movement speed cooldown is Fel Rush, which basically means that having a Dracthair in your party, which it's the new class, you're going to have a Dracthair in your party at almost all times, it's just how it's going to work out, means that you're going to have Fel Rush down to around a 6-second cooldown, which means that you're going to have permanent uptime on Momentum. And this is kind of where it breaks, right? Momentum is still tuned to be at 12% damage, even though you can still get the permanent uptime on it without using Glide. So the permanent uptime on this makes it incredibly powerful, right? So even if it's a hated playstyle, the fact that it's not a capstone, the fact that you want to come down here anyways, and the fact that it's very powerful because of these other talent interactions leading to it being almost 100% uptime, especially when what you want to be doing is you want to be building these big windows where Essence Reg is overlapping, where Demonic's overlapping, where Initiative's overlapping. So your Momentum is kind of built around just kind of buffing these damage windows that Havoc's going to have, which further makes it a necessary talent. So the fact that this is here kind of just locks us into these 5 points for most of the expansion. And that's very bad because, like, what if you just don't like Momentum? You're just kind of forced into it. It's going to lead to a lot of people not playing Havoc. So I think this really needs to be looked at, right? I think these connections need to be changed. I think maybe these damage values need to be turned down and need to be made a little bit better, hopefully, in terms of choice, right? Because right now you're kind of just forced into it. You don't really have a choice because you're always going to be getting Essence Break. You're always going to be getting Know Your Enemy, which means you always need to have Momentum. Now, I personally, I don't mind Momentum. You know, if it's good, I'll play it. If it's not good, I won't play it. That's basically how I am. But I know a lot of people don't like Momentum, which really leads to me kind of advocating for this change. Either nerf it, move it off to the side, make it less impactful, make it so you don't need to go down there, because a lot of Havoc players will be forced to pass for Momentum and are going to hate it and drop the class. And that's not what we want, right? We want people to play Havoc because they enjoy Havoc and still do as good damage as they can, right? Now, I'll go through and show you guys a little bit of like what it looks like. So I'll Fel Rush right here. You see I get 6 seconds. Oh, that's Essence Break. That's not the hunt. Sorry, I changed the hunt button. There's the hunt. I'll get 6 more seconds. Fel Rush. Do that. Now I have 15 seconds. Fel Rush is back off cooldown. I'll Fel Rush again. I'll just push I-Beam because it's fun. Why not? Push a few buttons here. And you can see that Fel Rush is coming back off cooldown. Now imagine if that came off cooldown 4 seconds ago, right? I'm already having basically 100% uptime. Combo that with the talent, like whenever you leave Demon Form, you get a charge of Fel Rush. Well, you're just going to have 100% uptime momentum again, which leads us to back to the issue we had before with Glide, except instead of using, Glide every few seconds and outside your GCDs, you have to spend your weird half movement GCDs to use these abilities to keep up this maintenance buff that's just giving us a 12% damage increase. That's going to lead to gameplay that people don't enjoy. It's going to lead to people being alienated from the spec, either due to difficulty, due to people just being unable to play, maybe due to accessibility issues. It's going to lead to people potentially playing this and just kind of inting and killing your raid. It's going to lead to a bad opinion for Havoc because a lot of people are just not going to be able to do this if they're forced into it. So I really want to see this changed. I want to see it moved somewhere that it isn't necessary. I do think that pathing this tree causes so many issues. Now, there's going to be a beta build tonight, and hopefully then we'll see some kind of change in momentum. There's going to be a change to Burning Wound, which is the other thing that people have a lot of love-hate relationship on, and I will be doing a video once that comes out. I was just kind of waiting for the changes we pushed to beta. But really, I think the combination with this pathing here, the combination with Erratic Fell Heart, the combination with the Drag Clear buff, really all combines into momentum to kind of compound this issue of people hating or loving this playstyle, but being forced into it. So I'm really hoping something there can change. But that's kind of a deep dive into the issues surrounding momentum at the moment, the talk around momentum and all the conversation going on in the community. Realistically, solutions to it, make momentum less mandatory, get rid of Isolated Prey, change out Erratic Fell Heart just so that it lowers the power a little bit. Maybe reduce the 12% down so it's less impactful, because it's still kind of at a capstone level, even though it's not no longer a capstone talent. And just kind of make it so that we have more choice in our points. Havoc's tree already is very point-starved, right? You can't use Netherwalk or Fell Eruption. So how are we going to invest these 5 points just because, A, it's the strongest thing in the tree, and B, we need it to get 2 of our strongest points in Know Your Enemy and Essence Break, really leads kind of a bad taste in your mouth. It leads to you having to do things you don't want to. And overall, it's going to make the gameplay and feel of Havoc worse in Dragonflight. Now, overall, I'm still super hyped for Dragonflight Havoc. I think it's going to be very fun. But I really hope this changes. Hopefully new build tonight brings out some changes to a few other things on the tree besides Burning Wound. I will have a video about that as soon as it's available. I want to thank everybody for watching this video. Let me know your thoughts on momentum down below. I'm actually very curious on if you love it or hate it. I'll probably be doing a poll when this video goes out as well, because I'm generally curious what people's opinions on momentum are. So I want to thank everybody for watching it. Subscribe if you enjoyed the video. Leave a like, comment down below. Tell me your thoughts. And I'll catch you guys next time.